You are checking your phone again. Not because something important happened. Because you need to know if they responded. And when you see nothing, no text, no notification, no sign, something tightens in your chest. A quiet panic. A story starts forming in your head. Maybe they are angry. Maybe I said too much. Maybe I am too much. That spiral? That's not love. That's not care. That's not even emotion. That's a prison you built for yourself, brick by brick, and you don't even know it. And the terrifying part? Most people will live their entire lives inside that prison, calling it feeling deeply. But what if the chains you think are holding you together are actually the thing destroying you? Here's what nobody tells you about emotional attachment. It doesn't feel like weakness when it starts. It feels like passion. It feels like you finally care about something. You are invested. You are present. You are alive. But there's a line, and most people cross it without ever noticing. The moment your peace becomes dependent on someone else's behavior, you have stopped living your life and started performing in theirs. Think about what actually happens inside you when someone doesn't text back quickly. When your boss gives you a look across the table. When your friends go out and don't invite you. When someone you admire posts something and doesn't acknowledge you. Your nervous system fires. Your thoughts race. You analyze the interaction 17 times. You replay what you said. You edit what you should have said. You imagine the worst possible version of what they think about you, and then you build your entire emotional state around that imagined version. Here's what's terrifying about that process. You are not reacting to reality. You are reacting to a story you invented. The text that didn't come. The validation that didn't arrive. The approval that was withheld. These are not wounds. These are gaps. Empty spaces. And the human mind, especially the anxious human mind, cannot tolerate empty spaces. So it fills them. Always. With fear. With catastrophe. With self-doubt. And this is where most people lose themselves. Not in some dramatic moment of crisis. Not in a public breakdown. But quietly, in the way they can't sleep because someone said something ambiguous. In the way they can't celebrate their own wins without immediately wondering what someone else thinks of those wins. In the way they need constant reassurance, from partners, from friends, from strangers on the internet, just to feel like they are enough. That is emotional dependence. And it is silent. And it is everywhere. Look at modern American life for a second. We live in a culture designed to maximize your emotional attachment to external outcomes. Social media is engineered to make you crave validation. Every like, every comment, every follower count is a variable reward system, the same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. You don't know when the reward is coming, so you keep pulling the lever. You keep checking. You keep performing. Relationships follow the same pattern. You overinvest. You overexplain. You abandon your own standards because you are terrified that if you hold your ground, they will leave, and if they leave, what does that say about you? See how quickly "I care about this person" becomes "I need this person to survive emotionally." And overthinking isn't just an annoying habit. It's the logical consequence of emotional dependence. When your peace is tied to an outcome you can't control, your mind keeps working to control it, obsessively, exhaustingly, uselessly. You think if you just analyze the situation one more time, you will find the answer that makes you feel safe. But there is no such answer. Because the problem was never the situation. The problem is that you handed your emotional security to something outside yourself. And the person who holds your peace, holds your entire life. That's not living. That's hostage-taking, and you volunteered for it. The Stoics saw this clearly. Not as a spiritual abstraction, but as a precise psychological diagnosis. They watched people suffer, not from the things that happened to them, but from the meaning they attached to those things. From the importance they assigned to outcomes they couldn't control. From the desperate, grinding need for the external world to behave in accordance with their internal desires. And they said, this is the source of all suffering. Not pain. Not difficulty. Not loss. Attachment. Dependence. The need for things to be other than they are. And then, they built a system for freedom. Let me share 5 Stoic secrets to emotional detachment. Secret 1, you are not your reactions. Most people believe their emotions are them. When you feel anxious, you think, I am an anxious person. When you feel angry, you think, this is who I am right now. When someone criticizes you and you feel shame, you think, this means something true about me. The Stoics had a different model entirely, and once you understand it, nothing is ever the same. Marcus Aurelius described it this way: between the event and your response, there is a space. That space is where your freedom lives. Not in changing the event. Not in controlling the other person. Not in making the outcome go your way. In that space, your reaction is not an automatic truth about who you are. It is a habit. A conditioned pattern that your nervous system has run so many times it feels like instinct. It feels like you. But it isn't. Here's the practical shift: the next time you feel emotional intensity rising, that tight chest, that racing mind, that burning need to say something or fix something or know something, don't act. Don't speak. Don't scroll. Don't reach for your phone. Just notice. I am feeling this. This feeling is not me. This feeling is passing through me. That single act of noticing, of creating the tiniest gap between stimulus and response, is the beginning of every Stoic principle you will ever learn. Because once you realize your reactions are habits, you realize habits can be changed. And here's where this cuts deep: most of your emotional suffering isn't caused by what's happening. It's caused by the commentary your mind runs on what's happening. The event is neutral. Your interpretation is the source of the pain. Someone cancels plans. That's the event. It takes 3 seconds. But the commentary? The commentary runs for 3 days. Why did they cancel? Was it me? Did I do something? Should I reach out? Should I wait? What does this mean for the relationship? The event ended. You kept it alive. The Stoic practice is simple and brutal: separate the event from the interpretation. Every time. Without exception. Until the separation becomes your default, and the suffering that came from the story loses its power. Secret 2, the dichotomy that changes everything. Epictetus was a slave. Literally owned by another human being. He had no property. No freedom of movement. No control over where he lived, what he ate, or what he was forced to do. And he became one of the most psychologically free people who ever lived. How? He made one distinction with absolute, uncompromising clarity. There are things in this world that are up to you, and there are things that are not up to you. Up to you, your thoughts. Your values. Your effort. Your interpretation. Your choices. Not up to you, other people's opinions. Other people's behavior. The outcome of your work. Whether someone loves you back. Whether you get the promotion. Whether the relationship survives. Whether people understand you. This isn't pessimism. This isn't detachment from life. This is the most radical act of self-reclamation available to a human being. Because here is what most people are doing with their emotional energy: they are spending it, pouring it, into the category of not up to you. They are working desperately, exhaustingly, obsessively to control the uncontrollable. To manage what cannot be managed. To secure what cannot be secured. And when it doesn't work, and it never does, they take it personally. They don't love me enough. I am not good enough. I failed. No. You didn't fail. You just invested everything in a category that was never designed to return what you gave it. Here's what makes this Stoic secret uncomfortable: it means you have to let go of the idea that if you just try harder, if you are just more available, more lovable, more impressive, more perfect, the external world will finally give you what you are looking for. It won't. Not because you are not enough, but because external things don't work that way. People change. Circumstances shift. What's true today won't be true next year. Trying to control any of it is like trying to hold water in your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. The moment you genuinely internalize the dichotomy, not as a theory, but as a felt truth, something loosens in you. You stop fighting what you cannot win. You redirect your energy toward what you actually own: your response, your values, your next action. That's not giving up. That's the first intelligent decision you have ever made about where your effort goes. Secret 3, a more fatty, not just acceptance, but appetite. Most people misunderstand Stoic acceptance. They think it means, tolerate what happens. Bear it. Endure it with a blank face and a clenched jaw. That is not acceptance. That is suppression with good branding. The Stoics, and later Nietzsche, who studied them obsessively, pointed to something far more confrontational. A more fatty love of fate. Not just accepting what happens. Not just tolerating it. Wanting it. Using it. Consuming it. This is the secret that cuts through every form of emotional suffering rooted in resistance. You didn't get the relationship to work out the way you planned. A more fatty. You were humiliated publicly. A more fatty. The thing you built collapsed. A more fatty. The person you loved chose someone else. A more fatty. Not because these things don't hurt. They do. They are supposed to. But because resistance to pain doesn't reduce pain. It extends it. It stretches a moment of genuine hurt into months of suffering by adding a second layer: this shouldn't be happening. This isn't fair. I don't deserve this. That second layer? That's optional. And it's the one doing most of the damage. The person who practices a more fatty doesn't say this is fine with empty positivity. They say, this happened. It is now part of my story. Everything that has ever happened to me has contributed to what I am right now. Including this. Especially this. And here's the psychological mechanism underneath this practice. When you stop dividing your experiences into good things that should happen and bad things that shouldn't, you stop spending emotional energy fighting reality. And when you stop fighting reality, you have access to something most people never feel. Clarity. Not peace in the soft, comfortable sense. But clear-eyed, cold-blooded clarity about what is actually true, what is actually in your control, and what your most intelligent next move is. That clarity is not available to a person who is screaming internally that things should be different. A more fatty isn't passive. It's one of the most aggressive stances a human being can take. It means you refuse to be a victim of your own life. Every single event, no matter how painful, gets metabolized as fuel. That is not weakness wearing the mask of peace. That is the most dangerous kind of strength. Secret 4. The view from above. Here is a technique Marcus Aurelius used personally, not as philosophy, but as a daily mental practice. And it is one of the most disorienting, liberating things you can do with your own mind. When you are in the grip of emotional intensity, when something has triggered you, when you can't stop thinking about what someone said, when the outcome of something feels unbearably important, pull back. Not just a little. All the way. Imagine yourself from above. A dot in a city. The city from 1,000 feet. Then from orbit. The continent. The planet. The incomprehensible dark of space. Your problem, the unanswered text, the job rejection, the person who doubted you, from out there, it is not visible. Now come back. But slowly. Come back to the continent. Then the country. Then the city. Then your building. Then the room. And notice what changed. Not the problem. The problem is still there. But the size of it shifted. The weight of it shifted. The proportion of it, relative to the scale of actual existence, became suddenly, mercifully honest. This is not a technique for dismissing your feelings. It's a technique for scaling them accurately. Because here's what happens when you are inside emotional intensity: your nervous system treats everything as survival level important. The unanswered message feels like abandonment. The criticism feels like annihilation. The uncertainty feels like imminent catastrophe. Your brain's threat detection system does not distinguish between a lion and a passive-aggressive comment from a coworker. Both trigger the same cascade: elevated cortisol, narrowed attention, the desperate urge to do something to make the threat stop. The view from above manually overrides that system. It forces a shift in perspective that the brain cannot generate on its own when it's flooded. And from that perspective, a question becomes possible that was impossible before. Will this matter in 10 years? Not as a dismissal. As a genuine, sober inquiry. Most of the time, and this will be uncomfortable to admit, the answer is no. The argument you are replaying. The opinion you are anxious about. The outcome you are desperate to control. In 10 years, in 20, you will barely remember the specifics. What will remain is only what you built during that time. The character you forged. The discipline you maintained. The clarity with which you acted. That is what's worth protecting. Not your temporary emotional comfort. Your long-term integrity. And the view from above makes it possible to see that difference, even when everything inside you insists the immediate thing is the most important thing in the world. Secret 5: Voluntary discomfort, emotional immunity by design. The Stoics practiced something that sounds strange to modern ears. They deliberately chose discomfort. Not as punishment. Not as masochism. As training. Seneca would periodically live for days as if he had nothing: simple food, minimal shelter, coarse clothing, not because he had to, but because he wanted to know what it felt like. So that when difficult circumstances arrived, they had no power over him. He had already met them. He knew he could survive them. The modern application of this principle is more psychological than physical, and far more relevant to the specific suffering most people are carrying. You are afraid of being alone with yourself. So you never are. There is always a screen, a playlist, a conversation, a scroll. You are afraid of uncertainty in relationships. So you seek constant reassurance, and each time you get it, the next moment of uncertainty feels more unbearable, because the reassurance seeking has trained your nervous system to be unable to tolerate the gap. You are afraid of rejection. So you pre-reject yourself by never being fully authentic, never asking for what you actually want, never risking being seen. Voluntary discomfort says, go toward the thing you have been avoiding. Sit with yourself. No phone. No music. No input. For 20 minutes. Just your own mind. Let the relationship uncertainty exist without resolving it. Don't text. Don't check. Don't perform. Sit with not knowing. Say the real thing, in a low-stakes situation first. Offer your actual opinion. Ask for what you actually want. Let yourself be visible. Each time you do this, something shifts. The fear doesn't disappear, but its grip loosens. Because your nervous system accumulates evidence that you can survive what you have been running from. And once it knows that, once it genuinely knows, the thing that was controlling you becomes just another thing. Not pleasant. Not preferred. Just survivable. And survivable things have no power over a person who has already proven they can survive them. Let me share a story of a man named Paul. 31 years old. Marketing manager in Austin, Texas. By every external measure, he had it together. Decent apartment. Good job. A social life he maintained with the kind of careful effort most people reserve for their careers. But there was one thing Paul could not stop doing. He was watching. Not in the obvious, alarming way, but in the way that only the person doing it can feel. Watching his girlfriend Maya's Instagram activity to see when she was online. Watching whether she texted first or always waited for him. Tracking the emotional temperature of every conversation, every silence, every slight change in the warmth of her voice. And when something felt off, even slightly, even ambiguously, Paul's entire internal world would shift into emergency mode. He would replay the last conversation. Analyze the tone of her most recent text. Wonder if she was pulling away. Wonder if he was being too much. Wonder if he wasn't being enough. His mind would build entire narratives about the state of the relationship based on nothing more than a slightly shorter reply. He told himself this was because he loved her deeply. He told himself it was because the relationship mattered. But deep down, in the place he never visited, he knew the truth. It wasn't about Maya. It was about his father, who left when Paul was 9. Who was present one day, and then absent in a way that was never fully explained, never fully processed. It was about the specific, particular feeling of watching a door close on someone who was supposed to stay. That feeling had buried itself in Paul at 9 years old, and every relationship since had been, on some unconscious level, a rehearsal for that same ending. So Paul monitored. He held on tight. He made himself indispensable, agreeable, low maintenance, accommodating, not because he wanted to be, but because some part of him believed that if he just made himself easy enough to keep, no one would leave. And Maya, who was kind, and patient, and genuinely loved him, started to feel it. The weight of being someone's entire emotional foundation. The subtle pressure of being watched that carefully. She started pulling back, not because she wanted to leave, but because she needed space to breathe. Which confirmed everything Paul feared. The thing he had been desperately trying to prevent was being caused by the very actions he was taking to prevent it. This is attachment's most savage irony: the tighter you grip, the more the thing you love suffocates. The breaking point came on an ordinary Tuesday. Paul sent 3 texts in a row, not dramatic texts, just checking in, just making contact, and Maya's response was short. Distracted. She mentioned being tired. And Paul sat in his car in a parking garage for 45 minutes unable to move. Not because anything had actually happened. Because the gap between what he needed and what she gave him in that moment was so vast it felt like falling. His chest was tight. His thoughts were running so fast he couldn't hold one before the next one arrived. She's pulling away. It's happening. I am losing her. I am going to lose her the way I lost him. I always knew I would. This is what happens when people know me. This is what I deserve. 45 minutes. In a parking garage. From 3 short texts. A friend, an older guy named David who had gone through his own version of this, found Paul later that evening and said something that didn't make sense at the time. He said, "You are not afraid of losing Maya. You are afraid of losing a feeling you never had to begin with. The feeling that someone staying proves you are worth staying for." Paul didn't understand it immediately. He pushed back. He defended himself. He said David didn't know what he was talking about. But that night, alone, he sat with it. And it cracked something open. Because what David had named was the exact mechanism. Paul had outsourced his self-worth to Maya's behavior. Her closeness equals his value. Her distance equals his worthlessness. He wasn't in a relationship. He was running a continuous referendum on whether he deserved to exist, with Maya as the only polling station. That's not love. That's extraction. Over the following months, slowly, without dramatic revelation, without the kind of change that happens all at once, Paul began to do the work. He started sitting with discomfort rather than immediately resolving it. He started noticing when the monitoring impulse arose, and pausing instead of acting. He started asking, in the moments of emotional intensity, is this real, or is this the story I am running? He started, for the first time, looking inward instead of outward for the sense of stability he would been searching for everywhere but inside himself. Maya noticed the shift before Paul fully felt it himself. Not because he became distant or cold, but because something relaxed. The grip loosened. The watching stopped. He became, over time, someone who was genuinely present, not because he was afraid of losing her, but because he actually wanted to be there. He stopped performing safety to keep her. He started actually feeling it. And on a night in late October, ordinary, unremarkable, Paul sat across from Maya at dinner and realized he wasn't monitoring anything. He was just there. Fully, freely, easily there. For the first time in his adult life, the peace in the room was his own. It didn't come from her expression or her words or the temperature of her attention. It came from him. And he thought, this is what they were talking about. Knowing the philosophy is not enough. Feeling inspired is not enough. You need a practice. A set of daily, repeatable actions that build the muscle of detachment the same way lifting builds the muscle of the body. Not through motivation. Through repetition. Here are the tools. Use them. Practice 1, the nightly audit, 2 questions before sleep. Most people end their day by passively absorbing content until they fall asleep. Their last conscious experience is whatever the algorithm served them. Whatever emotional residue that creates anxiety, comparison, stimulation, gets carried into sleep and wakes up with them. Replace that with 2 minutes of deliberate reflection. Every night, before sleep, answer 2 questions in writing, not in your head. On paper. In a journal. In a notes app. Somewhere external. Question 1. Where did I hand my peace to something outside myself today? Not judgment. Not shame. Just honest inventory. The moment you checked someone's profile 4 times. The moment you spent 20 minutes rehearsing a conversation that hadn't happened. The moment you needed approval before you could feel confident in your decision. Name it. That's all. Just name it. Question 2. What was actually in my control in that moment, and what did I do with it? This question does 2 things simultaneously. It reminds you of the dichotomy, your territory, not your territory. And it asks you to account, specifically, for how you used the territory that was yours. Over time, this practice does something invisible but profound. It trains your attention to notice emotional dependence while it's happening, not just in retrospect. Because you have been cataloging it nightly, your mind starts flagging it in real time. Wait. I am doing the thing. I am outsourcing my peace again. And in that moment of recognition, that tiny gap, you have a choice. A real one. Practice 2, the 90-second rule: don't act on the first wave. Neuroscientist Jill Bolte Taylor's research identified something critical: the physiological component of an emotion, the chemical cascade, the physical sensation, lasts approximately 90 seconds. 90 seconds. That's all. What keeps the emotion going after that is not the emotion itself. It's the thought patterns you engage with, the stories you tell, the meaning you assign, the thing you do in response to it. So here is the rule: before you respond to any emotionally charged situation, wait 90 seconds. Don't send the text. Don't send the email. Don't make the call. Don't post. Don't confront. Don't reach out for reassurance. Wait 90 seconds. Let the first wave move through. Then, from the other side of it, ask, is what I am about to do coming from clarity, or coming from the wave? This is not about suppression. You are allowed to respond. You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to have opinions and boundaries and reactions. But you respond from after the wave, not from inside it. The number of situations this single practice will save you from is not small. Relationships that survive because the reactive message never got sent. Opportunities that survive because the emotional withdrawal never happened. Decisions that work because they were made from steadiness rather than fear. 90 seconds. That's the distance between a reaction and a choice. Practice 3, identity anchoring: know what you are before the world tells you. Most people's sense of self is constructed almost entirely from external feedback. You are as good as your last performance review. You are as lovable as your relationship status. You are as worthy as the number of people who responded to what you posted. You are as intelligent as the approval of the smartest person in the room. That is not an identity. That is a mirror that reflects whatever is directly in front of it. The Stoic alternative is what modern psychology calls a values-based identity, and the practice is simple, but it requires honesty. Write down 5 qualities that you are committed to embodying regardless of outcome. Not qualities you hope people see. Not qualities you perform. Qualities you are committed to as your non-negotiable core. Examples: integrity, curiosity, presence, courage, consistency, generosity. Now here is the practice: every morning, before you interact with the world, remind yourself of those 5 qualities. Not as affirmations. Not as inspirational self-talk. As your operating agreement. Today, regardless of what happens, I will act in alignment with these. If someone validates me, good. If no one validates me, irrelevant. These are mine. They don't require permission. What this builds, over time, is something the Stoics called the inner citadel. A stable core identity that external events cannot penetrate. Not because you become cold or unfeeling, but because your sense of who you are no longer depends on what happens around you. That stability is the foundation of genuine detachment. Not the pretend kind, the aggressive, performative, I don't care about anything kind. The real kind. Where you care deeply, you act fully, you invest genuinely, and then you release the outcome. Because the outcome doesn't define you. Your values do. Practice 4, the premeditation: disarming future pain before it arrives. This practice sounds dark on the surface. But it is one of the most compassionate things you can do for yourself. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum. Premeditation of adversity. Here's how to use it. Pick something you are currently emotionally attached to. A relationship. A career outcome. A project. A friendship. A version of yourself you are trying to build. Now, quietly and without drama, contemplate losing it. Not obsessively. Not catastrophically. Just, honestly. Fully. What if this relationship ends? What would I do? Who would I be? What would I still have? What if this opportunity doesn't come through? What if the work doesn't get the recognition? What if this thing I have invested in doesn't deliver what I hoped? Sit with the discomfort of that image. Let it be real for a moment. Here's what happens: two things simultaneously. First, you realize that you could survive it. The fear of the loss has often been far larger than the actual loss would be. When you face it directly, the size of it normalizes. You discover resources in yourself you didn't know were there. Second, and this is the deeper effect, the attachment loosens. Because attachment lives in avoidance. The reason you grip so tight is because you cannot bear to look at what happens if you let go. The premeditatio forces the look. And once you have looked, once you have genuinely, soberly stared at the worst case and found that you can bear it, the grip relaxes. Not because you stop caring. Because you stop being controlled by the fear of loss. And the thing you love? You can finally enjoy it. Freely. Without the constant background hum of terror that you might lose it. That is what attachment steals from you that most people never name: the ability to enjoy what you have, without being paralyzed by the fear of losing it. The premeditatio gives it back. Practice 5, the witness seat, separating the observer from the emotion. This is the most advanced practice, and the one that creates the most durable change. Several times throughout your day, especially in moments of emotional intensity, shift internally to what the Stoics called the observer self. Not your emotional self. Not the part of you that is reacting, hurting, needing, wanting. The part of you that is watching all of that happen. Here's a simple access point: next time you notice emotional intensity, say silently, "I notice I am feeling this." Not, "I am anxious." I notice I am feeling anxious. The difference sounds small. It is not. The first statement merges you with the emotion. You become it. It controls you because it is you. The second statement creates a subject and an object. The subject, I, is observing the object, anxiety. You are not the emotion. You are the awareness that perceives it. This is not a trick. It is a direct access to a different level of your own consciousness, the one the Stoics were pointing at when they spoke of reason governing passion. Reason doesn't mean cold or unfeeling. It means the capacity to observe your own inner experience from a position of authority rather than victimhood. Practice this consistently, and something remarkable begins to happen. Emotions that used to hijack you for hours begin to move through in minutes. Not because you suppress them. Because you stop feeding them with identification. They arise, they are felt, they are witnessed, and then they pass. The way weather passes. Not your weather. Weather that moves through the space you are. And you remain. Here is what all of this comes down to. You have been living in a way that places your peace outside yourself. In someone's response. In an outcome you can't guarantee. In approval that might never come. In a version of the future that may never exist. And every day you live that way, you give a little more of your life to something that was never designed to hold it. This is the thing people discover after the relationship ends. After the promotion doesn't come. After the validation they chased finally arrives and feels like nothing. The peace they were looking for was never in the thing. It was never in the person. And this is where most people lose the plot. They think the revelation is supposed to make them care less. They think detachment means becoming unreachable. Closed. Indifferent. But here's what changes everything. Real detachment, the kind the Stoics practiced, does not make you care less. It makes you care clearly. You love someone not because you need them to survive emotionally, but because you choose to. Freely. From a position of completeness. You pursue a goal not because your worth depends on the outcome, but because the pursuit itself is aligned with your values. You show up, fully, vulnerably, authentically, not because you need it to go a certain way, but because you have decided that this is how you live. That is freedom. That is the thing on the other side of everything this video has been pointing at. Not the absence of feeling, but feeling without chains. Not indifference, but total, unconditional presence, without the terror underneath it. The difference between a person who clings and a person who is free isn't that one cares more. It's that one has found their own ground, their own stillness, their own unshakable center that the world can bump up against and not penetrate. You started this video in a prison. Not a metaphorical one, a real one. Built from the habit of outsourcing your emotional security to people, outcomes, and opinions you cannot control. Built from the story that your value is determined by what others give you or withhold from you. Built from the exhausting, grinding, endless work of trying to manage an unmanageable external world. The Stoics didn't offer you a softer prison. They offered you the key. And here it is, stripped to its essence. Nothing outside you has the power to determine what happens inside you, unless you give it that power. Not the unanswered text. Not the critical comment. Not the relationship that didn't last. Not the career that took a detour. Not the person who doesn't see your worth. None of it has inherent power over your peace. You assign that power, which means you can take it back. Not all at once. Not perfectly. Not without resistance. But you can start today, right now, in the next conversation, in the next moment of emotional intensity, by asking the question that separates the reactive life from the examined one. Is this within my control? And if not, why am I still giving it my peace? That question, asked honestly and repeatedly, will do more for your emotional freedom than any relationship change, any life circumstance, any amount of external success. Because the citadel the Stoics kept pointing to was never a destination. It was a practice. A daily, deliberate, difficult, profoundly worthwhile practice of returning to yourself. Returning to the only ground that was ever yours. The only place that was ever safe. Not because the world became kinder, but because you stopped needing it to be. There is a version of you that does not panic at silence. That does not collapse at criticism. That does not negotiate away their own values to keep someone comfortable. That does not need the outcome to validate the effort. That version isn't someone else. It isn't some future you after years of therapy and meditation and perfect circumstances. It is you, with a different practice. A different habit of mind. A different answer to the question of where your peace comes from. Start practicing it today. Start small. Start imperfect. Start. And if this video shifted something in how you see your emotions, if something in here landed in a way that won't let you look away, then subscribe. Because this is just the beginning.